Hey, let me know when you're ready.
So, and all of this, all of these things going on at bill.com are automatically recorded in QuickBooks. And so then the only things that really have to be done by the bookkeeper in QuickBooks are, journals and interest and, some of the reports and annual reports and things like that you really need out of QuickBooks, and, reconciliation and things like that can go on there. So overall, it makes a lot of these processes much smoother. It takes a lot of time and effort out of it. I find that my bookkeepers quite often in 10 or 15 minutes a week can triage, you know, quite a few things that are coming in. Even, we have hundreds and hundreds of things that come in the game store, and yet maybe even in half an hour, 45 minutes every week, they can handle that and make sure they're all triaged properly. Of course, you've all probably used DocuSign. There's, half a dozen other examples of this. So if you have contracts or agreements that need signatures, this is a very simple way to do it electronically, especially when all of us are hiding from the zombie apocalypse. These kinds of things can make everything just sort of zip along. People are very comfortable with doing business in these ways these days. And DocuSign and many of these other tools have ways to sort of demonstrate reliability that the person that you engaged with actually did sign it. And it's a real honest to God contract, even though it's signed digitally. So you don't have to have originals and hand signatures and whatnot. And another thing for small businesses that is something I would suggest is you find that quite often you do need an attorney for something. You review an agreement, send a letter. Gee, should I sue this guy? Whatever it might be, you have questions, right? So something like Legal Shield, which you could look up. In fact, I could connect you if you're interested. But Legal Shield is an example where essentially for a small fee per month, $24.95 or something like that, you have the ability to reach out to a local attorney firm, or for that matter, anywhere across the country, and get your legal questions answered. You don't have to pay any additional for those questions to be answered. They'll review a contract for free. I think it's 10 or 15 pages, right? More, you got to pay something if it's really big and hairy. And then they'll do other things for you at a discount from typical attorney fees. And I don't know about you, but every time I call an attorney, I feel like I get a house payment. So anything that brings that down a little bit is kind of helpful, especially when I just need some guidance to determine which direction I should go. Next slide. All right. So I guess with that, I don't know how I'm doing on time. I guess I'm not doing too bad. But I'd ask if anybody has questions. I don't know how you feel that, Rob.
Yeah, so what we've done in the past is if anyone has a question, they can type it in, and if the audio is suitable, we'll unmute them once we see if they have a question, and then we'll let them ask it if their audio is working well. Seems like it usually works. Really great talk, Will. I wasn't sure exactly what to expect. I remember reading through what you described for the talk, and I really like that you focus so much on the business aspect of this, because that's exactly what you're doing, is running a business. Really great thing. I love the KPI slide and how that it's really more of an additive versus it's more of a multiplicative, versus additive, and it's a nice thing to really highlight, because if you make a couple % improvement in a couple places, that really makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's surprising. I think that when I first saw this, I of course, like all of us, I'm like, KPIs. Yes, I'm an engineer. I love KPIs. This is great. But then when you see this, you go like, this could change a lot.
Yep.
And it applies to all businesses, not just a consulting business. So every business it could apply to in a different way.
So, Will,
Yes.
there was a comment by Pete Salerno that he recommends using Wave Accounting, as it's free and does the same thing as QuickBooks Online.
Yeah, so maybe that's good. So one of the nice things about QuickBooks, and the reason that I've been using it, is because it does integrate with all these things. Now, that being said, there's a lot of things out there that can be integrated. So, and I certainly don't have all of the answers, but I hope that you get the idea that getting all these things to work together in a way that's easy for you, easier for your bookkeeper, easy for your clients and customers, um, will mean these things happen smoothly and without a whole lot of additional thought or struggle.
And we have a question from Bob Arrow. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you so you can ask your question. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, thank you. Great presentation and talk, Will.
Thanks,
I
Bob.
really like the way that you gave pretty in-depth treatment to the tools and tactics. I've been doing consulting since 2005, and there are some new insights there, so I appreciated that. I really appreciated Gary's introduction and his description of the coattail effect. As Gary moved up, you moved up, and I kind of have teased Gary over the years, where I was encouraging him to run for IEEE president, and I'm just imagining that you were wondering, hey Gary, when are you going to go for president so I can move up to IEEE USA president?
Well, it's one of those things, and of all people here, I'm sure you understand this. There's that two-letter N word. It's hard to pronounce, and so that tends to get us all into a lot of trouble, I guess.
Yeah. So a couple other questions. You covered the cash operating plan, COP.
Yes.
Is that sort of a subset of the business plan?
Yes. So what I would do, there was a day where I thought, oh, you should write a big 25-page business plan and really think everything through. And I think if you are, if you're going to be a big company and you're going to raise millions of dollars, you're going to have a plan that's pretty clear, and you're going to communicate it over and over, and you're going to put something together that's worthy of putting in a private placement memorandum or something. But I don't think that's necessary. In fact, in most businesses, that would be an overkill and wasted of a lot of effort. Instead, I think you need to think on the lines of more like 5 to 10 pages. But you've got 3 pages here that are part of a financial, right? And so the first year should be broken out month for month with all of the different expenses that you can try to understand, and you should actually call people. So you need insurance, and you need payroll, and you need whatever it might be. You could make it very small for a small business, but it's amazing how many details you start digging up when you start going to hunt for them. And spread them out through the year. Try to understand what that's going to cost you, because sometimes you'll be a little surprised, especially if you're starting a new business. Right? How much you have to fund yourself, plus you have to fund this business as you go hunt for clients. So you need to understand that in advance. And the two next can be a little bit de-res, but the perspective you have there is you're trying to understand what the upside is, and give yourself a little bit of thoughts to grow. And so I call it a cash operating plan, because hopefully this is going to be guidance on how you're going to operate the business. No plan survives contact with the market, of course, so you're going to be revising it. And I would say that you probably manage more from we'll call it a kitchen table budget or a cash tracking type of spreadsheet, so where you're making decisions on a day-to-day basis about which things to do and which things not to do. But hopefully it's grounded in your cash operating plan. And if anybody needs an example, I could give you a template.
Very good. Thanks for the additional insights and explanation. My final question is with regard to the workflow automation plus CRM.
Yes.
You listed Podio, Pipedrive, and you have others. I'm wondering if you've actually done any kind of a trade study, and if you did, maybe that you might be willing to make that available. And if not, do you have a preference?
Well, so in some cases, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. For instance, Podio seems to be used a lot in the world of real estate, right? And so, Podio is used in all kinds of things, however, and you can get a free trial and you can see how it works. It's, in my view, from a web perspective, it's a cloud application, and it's pretty sophisticated, but it's a pretty straightforward kind of a thing. But it looks kind of clunky, honestly. So something like Pipedrive is a lot more limited. In fact, it looks kind of like Trello for business purposes, if you've ever used Trello. Where Trello by itself is more like just a lot of tasks lined up in different swim lanes, and hopefully your swim lanes go along with capability. So it's often used for agile programming and things like that. Anyway, you start to see what happens. So the perspective might be, in each case, you're trying to figure out what goes next. What is the first step in the process? What is the second step in the process? What is the third step in the process? You would like to build in some automation into that tool to allow it to step from thing to thing to thing with some, so it's clear what happened and who's responsible, and you have some follow-up in terms of time limits on what things happen, so that people, don't just let things die. So, and I don't know if I have anything written that I could send out on this, but I have done some studies, and there's some great sites on the web that list a lot of these tools and give comparisons, like Capterra and sort of things. If you know what you're looking for, if you're looking for process automation tools, for instance, you can ask for that, and you're going to see a whole lot of things that fall into that category versus CRMs. And you're going to see some overlap of those tools. So I would suggest going to something like Capterra and use some of the keywords I've given you, and you'll find a whole bunch of examples of that with pros and cons and costs and that sort of thing.
How do you spell the word you're saying?
Capterra, Capterra, I think is how it's spelled. Probably capterra.com, and it's some type of clearinghouse on the internet that has evaluated a lot of these different tools, and I'm sure there's a lot of people contributing information to that. But yeah, you can if you were looking for things like Zoom, or you're looking for streaming tools, you're looking for anyway, they've cataloged quite a few, and you can get some good sense of which things you might want to go look at and get demoed and give a try to.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate it.